Honley Woods, seen here in the centre of the picture in its autumnal colours, stretches from Meltham Mills in the west, eastwards along a steep escarpment above the Magdale Valley, right into the outskirts of Honley village itself, overlooked by Castle Hill in the east. And here, this second view of the woods is taken from Netherton, looking across Magdale, moving this time from Honley westwards towards Meltham Mills. In the 19th and 20th centuries, the western side of the woods was exploited for quarrying. These quarries have since been used for landfill, and tree growth is slowly returning to that part of the woods. The Society was interested in particular in exploring this central section of the woods, where LiDAR surveys reveal a D-shaped feature, marked here by grey lines. The red lines are paths, and the straight pink line right across the D shape is an 18th century enclosure wall. Three areas were excavated. Trench 1 explored a possible entrance into the enclosure. Trench 2 was a large area excavated to investigate possible human activity or settlement, whilst Trench 3 explored in some depth the structure of what appears to be a rampart constructed of stone. Today, the whole site is covered with trees, mainly birch and oak, which at some time in the past have been coppiced, perhaps for charcoal production. Well camouflaged by the leaves, it is just possible to make out part of the stone rampart structure amongst the trees here. It is possible that this D-shaped enclosure looks something like this image, or perhaps not on such a large scale. Certainly, no defensive ditch around the site was found, but being situated on the edge of the steep escarpment, such defences were probably not necessary. Project manager for the dig was John Bowen, ably assisted by Linda Beaver as supervisor. Both John and Linda set the highest professional standards in surveying, excavating, and recording the work at the site. From August 2016 to the end of March 2017, between 5 and 10 members of the Archaeological Society were regularly active in the woods on most weekends. Thanks to the extremely mild winter, very few days were lost to bad weather, and excavating in Honley Woods was generally a very pleasant experience throughout the winter. A thorough survey of the whole site was carried out during the winter by Colin Dunn. The excavation in Trench 1 did in fact prove that this was indeed an entrance, revealing a definite gap in the bank. A large fallen sandstone orthostat was revealed, and this indicates a vertical terminal stone for the entrance gap in the bank. There was no evidence of a ditch or stake holes that could have held a gateway feature. However, across the whole site, the archaeology is very shallow, and evidence of these could have been destroyed by later activity or by the growth of woodland. Finds from Trench 1 include a possible prehistoric hammerstone and a prehistoric struck flint, part of a blade that could be of Neolithic or Mesolithic date. Trench 2, in the interior of the enclosure, was the largest area excavated, and the results were rather complex and not at all easy to interpret. The site contained lots of burnt stone, smoothing stones, and a piece of iron slag, although no hammer scale or signs of metalworking were present. Parallel lines of upright stone were also uncovered, resembling a flue, and further excavation revealed a hearth-like feature related to this flue. Since there was no evidence of any industrial activity or metalworking, the hypothesis is that this is a domestic area, possibly for the processing or drying of grain. Around 18 shards of unglazed porous pottery were also uncovered. There were also elements of broken saddle querns and one of a potential broken beehive quern. One flint artifact has been identified as Mesolithic, although this does not date the feature of the site, but does indicate hunter-gatherer presence in this area in the Mesolithic period, with a likely date of between 8,000 to 5,000 BC. A 2-metre wide section across the south side of the bank was excavated, and under the leaf litter layers was humus and a charcoal blackened layer of small stones covering the bank, with some larger stones that appear to be slippage or buttressing. After recording, this layer of stones was removed, as were subsequent layers, in order to deconstruct the bank and find out its construction. The bank eventually revealed itself to be a wall 2.5 to 2.7 metres thick, more carefully built on the outer face than the inner, with drainage feature towards the interior. The inside of the wall was filled with sand and stones. It appears that during the construction of the 1790 enclosure wall, the stones from this D-shaped wall were robbed out to provide building material, and the blackening of these stones may indicate charcoal manufacture was taking place throughout the time of the robbing out, around 1790. Interference from tree roots rodents, and the potential that sand used to build the wall may contain earlier charcoal from fires has made reliance on charcoal as a method to date the wall unreliable. The trench was also extended to the south side to look for an outer ditch, but no such outer ditch was found. But we did discover some quarrying out of stone at the same time the wall was constructed. One piece of flint was found, indicating that the sand used to construct the wall contained evidence of previous prehistoric human activity in this area. The trench was then extended into the interior by 2 metres to look for an internal ditch, for which again there is no evidence. A piece of unglazed pottery found in the area will perhaps help with dating. The wall is a very deliberate and sophisticated single-phase piece of construction, requiring a lot of labour and planning, which indicates that the site is of a higher status than a standard farmstead.
Hey Nick, have you seen what I'm drawing here? Eh? Can't put a string with levels on because all stone's sticking out. Do that.
The woods are very popular with local walkers, most of whom showed a great deal of interest in the excavations here. Linda and John always took time to explain in detail to our visitors what was happening. And if nothing else, the activity in Honley Woods proved to be excellent PR for the Huddersfield Archaeological Society. An intriguing footnote to the excavations at Honley Wood was provided by the 1788 enclosure map. This showed that a part of the wood and a field next to Honley Village, together with a small farm, as well as a much larger area of pasture land near our excavated part of the wood, was once the property of the trustees of the Royal Grammar School at Clitheroe in Lancashire, a school founded by Queen Mary in 1554. How come that a grammar school in Lancashire should have several fingers in the Honley pie? Although not directly relevant to our excavations, curiosity needed to be satisfied, and an answer was promptly provided by Dr. Andy Clayton, chairman of the present-day trustees of Clitheroe School, who delved into the school's archives for the answer. The land in question was in fact confiscated by Henry VIII following his dissolution of the monasteries, and this land then passed through inheritance to his daughter, Queen Mary. During her reign, it became fashionable in many parts of the country to found so-called free schools, such as the grammar school in Clitheroe. Although many of them bear her name, she was not directly involved in their creation. She was, so to speak, the symbolic source of the funds for the founding of these schools. She was probably more preoccupied elsewhere, burning Protestants at the stake, almost 300 of them. She was not called Bloody Mary for nothing. The grammar school sold the Honley land in 1837. Although many locals today, 150 years later, still refer to the woods and the farm as Clitheroe. Although the chariot burial, promised by Linda, was reluctant to reveal itself, it is no doubt patiently waiting for a later generation of society members to unearth it. In the meantime, a detailed report and interpretation of this excavation from both John and Linda will hopefully shed more light on this rather mysterious collection of stones.